Hello everyone and welcome to lesson zero point 0.2, a lesson that I am super excited to share with each and every one of you today because it is the lesson that actually begins to introduce you to the class simulation. Yes, all of you are going to be participating in a year-long class simulation. Our class simulation is this. Each and every one of you are now going to become citizens of a fictitious country. And the name of this country is called the Kingdom of Silandia. Yes, my friends, all of you are now loyal, wonderful citizens of the Kingdom of Silandia. Okay? And so in this simulation, you are going to have specific roles that each of you will play within the simulation, and there will be different world events and different other type of events that will happen that you guys will respond to, and those responses will come with points and different types of things that will gain you points, which will allow you to move up the ladder and gain certain other privileges. So it's an interactive thing for us to be able to do within our class as well. So in order for you to actually be a wonderful and loyal subject of the Kingdom of Silandia, it might actually behoove us to know something about it. So that is why today's lesson is titled The Kingdom of Silandia. So by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to explain what the Kingdom of Silandia is. You will be able to identify the Silandian flag. You can also explain how Parliament is divided into two separate houses. You will also be able to describe the political situation in Silandia and describe the Silandian Supreme Court as well as the Silandian monarchy. And just so you know, this beautiful, beautiful emblem that you see here is one of the royal seals for the royal family. So my friends, welcome to the Kingdom of Silandia. If you'll notice here on the left-hand side, this is an outline map of the Kingdom of Silandia, so you can kind of see it there. You'll see a bigger one in just a moment. But just a little bit of background information on the Kingdom of Silandia. About the size. The size is about 1.3 million square miles, which means it's slightly larger than India, but is slightly smaller than Australia. So, as you can see, Silandia is a rather large country in terms of size, in terms of area. The population is 83.4 million, which is roughly around the size of Germany. So, while it is a large country and it does have a large population, we're pretty even here. We're pretty decently spread out. We do have areas of sparse population in large cities, but of course we do have a good balance between people and square mile. We consist of 21 different commonwealths, which are equivalent to what is roughly the different states within the United States. So we actually have 21 commonwealths, and each one of you will actually be in one of those commonwealths throughout this simulation. There is another entity called the Grand Duchy of Tilden-Sunbury, and the best way to describe the Grand Duchy of Tilden-Sunbury is it's kind of like a China-Hong Kong situation. The Grand Duchy is not an independent nation like Silandia is, but it is not part of Silandia. They do have their own Grand Duke. So this is an ongoing thing that we will have to deal with throughout the entire year as well. The capital of the Kingdom of Silandia is the city of Donington, and it's a very large city of 641,000 people. We are a constitutional monarchy, and I guess I did kind of fib and lie to you guys in previous lessons. I did say that my name was Richard Albrecht, but indeed I am also the head of state of the Kingdom of Silandia. Hello, my friends. I am King Richard the Eighth of the Kingdom of Silandia. Yes, the VIII, that is 8. So I am King Richard the Eighth of the Kingdom of Silandia as well. I'm very casual, so no, you do not need to address me as Your Majesty unless you do feel the need to do so. I will never call you down if you do. Here you have a map of the Kingdom of Silandia, and if you'll notice, the entire map is just the Kingdom of Silandia, so we are a rather large island nation. And you see here the names of each of the 21 different commonwealths. take a moment to pause and just look at the map, get to know the shapes of the different commonwealths. There are different unique shapes, like looking here at things like Leiden and Hanningfield and their little weird juts there. And these two different green things here, one that's attached to the mainland of this little island here, that, my friends, is the Grand Duchy of Tilden Sunbury. So not only do they have a little piece of land that's attached to the mainland, but they also have a little island off the coast as well. So this is a map of the Kingdom of Silandia. Take a moment to pause and just look at it, get to know it a little bit better, because you are going to reside and live in one of those commonwealths. Welcome. As with many nations across the planet, a nation's prominent symbol is sometimes and often is its flag, and that is also the case for Silandia. We are very, very, very proud of our flag. And as our newest citizens in the Kingdom of Silandia, it would behoove us to make sure that you know and recognize one of our nation's most beloved symbols, our flag, and understand the story behind our flag. So if you'll see on the screen here, you see where I've circled in red, this is the beautiful Silandian flag. And now that you've seen it, you'll see some flags coming out later on throughout the simulation as well. But this is the Silandian national flag. And how did we get this flag? Well, the legend of it is from the legend of the Battle of Lodsworth Hill. Now, the Battle of Lodsworth Hill did actually happen in Silandian history, so was a real battle in Silandian history, but there are legends that are centered around this. It's very much kind of like the legend of King Arthur and things like that in English history. But the Battle of Lodsworth Hill happened on the Whitby-Sardon-Welton Filey border, so those of you who live there in the future, you'll know you're around a place of great historic value in Silandia. It happened on June 17th, 1208. So June 17th is a national holiday, and it's a great national holiday for Silandia. And one of the awesome things about this event is that it happened under the reign of Queen Margaret I, which is the source of great pride for many Silandians, is because Queen Margaret I was reigning in her own right, meaning, she had come to the throne because Silandia was one of the earliest countries that we know of that actually allowed direct primogeniture. And what that means is that allowed, if a monarch had a female child, and if she was the eldest child, then she did become the next reigning monarch. And Silandia has had that system in place for many, many years. And so Queen Margaret I was one of the first queens to reign in her own right, and she actually was able to defeat invading forces at the Battle of Lodsworth Hill, and at the battle is where this legend came about under her leadership. And of course, Queen Margaret reigned from 1185 to 1210. Now, under Queen Margaret's reign, she had already defeated a Swedish invasion in 1195. She had also defeated the Danes from Denmark in the year 1200, because the Danes and the Swedes had actually invaded Silandia and had occupied southeastern Silandia. So all of these commonwealths listed here, they were actually occupied by Sweden and Denmark during this part of Queen Margaret's reign. And so the legend goes that the Danes were defeated after a lambskin banner depicted a white cross on a field of navy blue, and it fell from the sky, and then it miraculously led to a Silandian victory. So our flag is a depiction of this beautiful white cross that was depicted on a lambskin flag that had fallen off of its pole, and it was floating gently through the sky. And after witnessing that, Silandia was able to defeat the Swedes and the Danes, and this is how we got our flag. Now, Silandia is a constitutional monarchy, but in a constitutional monarchy, we do have a legislature and a legislative system. And our legislature is a bicameral legislature, meaning we do have two houses. The two houses of our parliament are the House of Unions, which is our lower house, and the National Senate, which is our upper house. Let's take a look at the House of Unions for just a moment. The House of Unions elections must happen every 5 years. What this means is that, you could have an election in 3 years. You could have an election the very next year after an election. But if not, if the full parliament meets the entire 5 years, at the end of that fifth year, you must have an election. The number of members in the House of Unions is based on the population of the Commonwealth. The Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Silandia is chosen from the House of Unions, and there are a total of 598 seats in the House of Unions. 299 of them are constituent seats, meaning Silandia is divided into 299 districts. The other 299 seats are called party seats. Of all of Silandia's major political parties, the people of Silandia are asked a political preference, and then based on that preference, they divide the seats based on the percentage of votes that that party gets. Basically, Silandia's lower house, the House of Unions, is very much based on Germany's lower house of parliament as well. Our National Senate is our upper house. And our National Senate is not an elected body. It is an appointed and a hereditary body, meaning we have two different types of senators. We have what are called hereditary peers, or hereditary senators, or national peers, or national senators. You can use the terms interchangeably. But all of these positions are appointed or inherited. So if you're, because we do have nobility in Silandia, and so some of them do still have seats in the National Senate. So some dukes may actually pass down, or some earls may pass down their seat, but they're not the largest majority. All senators, regardless of if they're a appointed or a hereditary peer, they must retire at the age of 75. And the purpose of the National Senate is to serve as a house of experts. And it's not exactly like the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. It's not all just nobles. It's kind of a mixture of that. There are nobility in the National Senate, but a sizable portion of the National Senate is experts that are appointed from engineering, medicine, education, climatologists, mathematicians, literary folks. I mean, so there's people all in the National Senate there, so that when a bill comes through, they're considered experts to be able to say, this bill would be very great for this industry or negative for this industry or something like that. And there are 348 total members in the National Senate. Our wonderful parliament meets here in this beautiful building. This is Donminster Palace. Donminster Palace is located in Donington, Silandia, which is the capital of the Kingdom of Silandia. And isn't this just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful picture? And like I said, this is where our parliament meets. And over here on this particular side of the building, this is where the House of Unions sits. And over here on this particular side of the building, this is where the National Senate sits. And on the back side of this dome is where the throne room is located. And that is where yours truly can be found for state openings of Parliament. One of the biggest events of the year. I love it every year. The House of Unions and the National Senate come to meet me in the throne room, and I get to lay out the legislative agenda for both houses. So this is a beautiful picture. So I'm going to erase this and pause so you can enjoy. Here you can actually see a better picture of what the House of Unions and the National Senate actually looks like. So here in the House of Unions, you can clearly see all of the different seats sitting in a semicircle. There's 598 seats in here, and it looks a little cramped, I know, but it actually does seat very comfortably 598 people. And you can actually see their statues lined along up here, and those are actual, prominent civic individuals in Silandian history, engineers, politicians, former prime ministers, etc., etc., etc. Here in the National Senate, you can see the beautiful regalia and royalty of the purple and red. It's a beautiful shade of purples and red and things like that. It's symbolic of the nobility, because at one point in time, the National Senate it used to not be the National Senate. It was actually called the House of Nobles. And so at one point in time, this was just the chamber that had just, earls and dukes and barons and that type of thing sitting in here. But now the Senate has evolved to being a house of experts, and the power that the nobility has is greatly diminished in the Senate. But if you'll notice in the Senate, the beauty of the seating arrangement, and then back here you see beautiful tall statues of former monarchs of the Kingdom of Silandia that happen to do or preside over tremendous historical events in Silandian history. And here you actually see a graphic of the political spectrum of political parties of the Kingdom of Silandia. Now, just like here in the United States, the Kingdom of Silandia does have two major or two main political parties. One is on the left and one is on the right. And the largest party in Silandia on the left is the Democratic Socialist Party. That is the largest party in the Kingdom of Silandia on the left. So it's one of the two major political parties. The major political party on the right is the Nationalist Party. And the Nationalist Party is basically kind of like the equivalent to the Republican Party in the United States, and the Democratic Socialists would be kind of like the Democrats here in the United States if you're looking at just a two-party system. But in Silandia, we do not only have two parties, we have multiple party elections, and rarely do any one political party have total control over the government. But we do have a left and a right. And so looking at the left-hand side parties, we have the Progressive Liberal Party, the Green Party, and the Silandian Socialist Party alongside the Democratic Socialists, and that makes up our left-leaning parties. Here in the middle of the spectrum, we have our more moderate parties, and that is our Liberal Party and our Progressive Democratic Party. Those two parties make up our middle party. And then our last right-leaning party is the Unionist Party. And so the Unionists and the Nationalists make up our two largest parties on the right. But like I said, the two main political parties are the Democratic Socialists and the Nationalists. But we have multi-party elections in the Kingdom of Silandia. Now, in the next few slides coming up, you really want to pay attention, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to look at each one of these 8 political parties, and you're going to look at briefly what each one of these parties stand for, what they advocate for, and their leanings on certain things. And you really want to pay close attention, because at the end of this activity, you're going to want to choose one of these 8 political parties that you feel like you would most want to play in the simulation, okay? Because some of the roles will require that you play a certain political, will require you to be a part of a political party. And so at this point, just choose which one of these political parties you think would be most interesting to play. Okay, so looking at the things that they believe and value, and say, this would be an interesting role to play. Okay, so the next few slides coming up, just pay attention as you're looking at each individual party. The first 2 political parties that we're going to look at are 2 that are on the left, and that is the Democratic Socialist Party of Silandia, or the DSP, and the Progressive Liberal Party of Silandia, or the PLP. Both of these parties are part of the coalition government in Silandia. So our current government right now is made up of a government coalition of 4 political parties. 2 of them are seen here, the Democratic Socialists and the Progressive Liberals. Pause now to learn more about each one of these political parties to help make your decision on which you wish to partake in the simulation. Here you have the other 2 parties of the coalition government, and that is the Green Party of Silandia, that is the GPS, and the Silandian Socialist Party, or the SSP. As I said, these are the 2 other parties of the coalition government, and you can see their seat numbers here, and as I'm sure you noticed on the previous screens. Pause the video now to learn more about the Greens and the Silandian Socialist Party to decide which ones you wish to play in the simulation. Now we are on the flip side, and we are talking about opposition parties. Now, there's a little bit of difference here, because while all of these parties now are in opposition, because the previous 4 parties are the parties of the government, That means that if you add up all of the numbers of those four parties, that means that they are over 299 seats, because remember, the parliament has 598 seats. You have to have at least 300 to have a majority. And so the left has a majority in the House of Unions, therefore they created a government. But the opposition parties, these are the four parties that are not part of the government. Now, the Nationalist Party of Silandia, or the SNP, is the largest opposition party. Remember, this is the one of the main parties in Silandia, so it has 132 seats currently in the House of Unions. And then, if you'll notice this one, the Progressive Democratic Party of Silandia, it is a non-aligned party. And so what this means is that officially right now, Silandia's opposition is only one party. It is the Nationalist Party of Silandia, because the Progressive Democratic Party is not part of any coalition. It's not joining with the Nationalists, and it does not join with the left. So we do have one party that actually is the official opposition, and that is the Nationalist Party. And then we have the Progressive Democratic Party, which is not part of any group. So pause the video now and learn more about these political parties as well. And lastly, we have the Unionist Party of Silandia, or the UPS, and the Liberal Party of Silandia, or the LPS. And these two parties are also non-aligned parties, meaning that they are in opposition, but they are not part. They do not side with the Nationalists, and they do not side with the left. So liberals, just like Unionists, as well as the previous two other parties, are free to vote any way they wish. So sometimes they may vote with Nationalists, sometimes they may vote with the left, sometimes they may vote a different way, who knows. But pause the video at this point, learn more about these parties to see which one you would feel most like enjoying playing throughout the simulation. This particular graphic is just showing you the seating arrangement in the House of Unions, and as you can see, this particular side of the chamber is the side of the chamber that houses the government. This is the left. In the last election in 2019, the left won the election with 313 seats. The right has 285. So these four political parties are the ones that created the government. These are the election results from the 2019 election. And if you see, here's the list of all the different parties. There are two different sets of votes, and this will explain about how our system works in Silandia. This first column here, is the total number of votes that each party received in each district. So the Kingdom of Silandia is divided into 299, I just circled right there, 299 constituencies or districts. And so based on the number of votes that were given there, it's kind of like it's a first past the post system, if you know what that means. It means whoever gets the most number of votes wins. And so that means that, for example, the Unionist Party of Silandia, they actually won 20 districts in the Kingdom of Silandia. So they actually picked up 20 seats because they won 20 districts outright. In this second column that you see over here, this is the political party vote. And so Silandians, when they submit a ballot, they actually submit two. They submit one ballot, this one, for their constituency, and then they submit one for a political party preference. So I might say I really like Joe Bob, and he is a socialist. Okay, so I voted for him because I really liked him, but I myself am not a socialist. I actually am a nationalist, so I voted for the nationalists in the party election. Okay, so that's how that works. So based on that, the Unionist Party, 4.9 million people in Silandia voted that they would like to have a government under them, so it gives them 10.5% of the vote, which gives them 32 additional seats. So that's why you have 299, and 299 gives you 598 seats in the House of Unions. But this just gives you the breakdown of how many seats each political party won. Here is the Supreme Court of Silandia, and if you this is the Supreme Court building located in Donington. Our Supreme Court has 9 Supreme Court justices. They are confirmed by the National Senate, very similar to how it is in the United States. Ours is slightly different in that our justices do not serve until for life. They actually are required to retire at the age of 75 as well, just like our national senators are. And the Supreme Court of Silandia is considered very apolitical, and the reason being is because the monarch is also apolitical, meaning I do not take political sides, and the National Senate is also apolitical because it's hereditary and it's appointed, so it is not it's not a political entity. So the reason why the Supreme Court is appointed by apolitical entities, I, as the monarch, am not political, and the Senate is not political, and therefore the perception of the Supreme Court is that it too is also not political. So it really does help the image in our court system much better than, say, in countries like the United States, where a political person like a president chooses and the legislature, which is made up of politicians, also confirms. So it does become more partisan over time. Okay, so not to brag, but this particular graphic is showing Clarendon Palace, which is my official residence. Yes, King Richard VIII, do live in Clarendon Palace. Look, you see the beautiful picture here. The palace was built by a very older relative of mine, King Robert II, is the person who had Clarendon Palace built. And it was built between 1669 and 1677, so it did take quite a while to build this palace. But I will say this, just for future reference, it is a beautiful palace. I do love my digs right there, and it really does save on lawn maintenance when you have a huge parade ground in the front, so I highly recommend it if you actually have it. And here is the flag of the Royal Standard. The Royal Standard is the flag that represents the royal family, and so this flag flies on top of Clarendon Palace when I am at home, and when I am not at home, it does not fly there. And of course, the Royal Standard is made up of combining the coat of arms of the 2 families that came together to create the Beresford dynasty, which is the dynasty that currently rules the Kingdom of Silandia, of which I am the head. So there you have it. Our lesson has concluded on the Kingdom of Silandia. So, can you explain what the Kingdom of Silandia is? Can you identify the flag of Silandia? Can you explain how the Parliament is divided, the House of Unions, the National Senate? Can you describe the political situation in Silandia? Can you briefly describe the Silandian Supreme Court? And can you briefly describe the Silandian monarchy? At this point, make sure that you are reviewing your notes, take a look at what you've got, and clarify any questions with a colleague, or seek me out for assistance. But complete any required activities for lesson 0.2 and then proceed on to, that should be lesson 0.3. All right, thank you so much for your time and have a great afternoon.